on the Common Sense Club and the Scott Hennen Show. A little bit of a change of schedule here for an appropriate reason because we had an interview scheduled that we thought had gotten postponed till tomorrow, but since the man's on the line, it's obviously not postponed. Let's welcome Governor Mitt Romney to the Common Sense Club and the Scott Hennen Show. Governor, how are you?
I'm terrific, Scott. How are you this morning?
Well, good. Nice to hear from you, and a chance for you to talk to Minnesotans a day or so before they go to the polls, but also to give us your first reaction to the weekend news in Nevada. Give us your thoughts there.
Well, obviously, I'm very pleased. They finally counted all the votes. These caucuses take a long time to get through all the ballots, and with the ballots all counted, I got 50% of the vote, and that's an encouraging sign. It means I'll get the lion's share of the delegates from Nevada, and my delegate count is growing. So I'm doing what I got to do to get delegates lined up, and I obviously want to be the nominee. I think it's critically important that we replace Barack Obama, and I think I'm in by far the best position to be able to replace him and get America back on track.
Give us your sense of the state of this race. Some folks seem to be saying, hey, it's over. It's Mitt Romney's. Obviously, Newt Gingrich is talking about going all the way to the convention. Rick Santorum leading in the polls in Minnesota, still alive. The Ron Paul folks, there's a lot of enthusiasm there. Is this over, or is this going to go to the convention?
Well, it's hard to predict. I think it's more likely that at some point, one or the other of us will get the delegates we need to become the nominee. I hope that's me. We're concentrating on getting delegates, and we're spending our time and spending our money in the states that actually have delegates that will be bound to the candidate who wins the election. And so we have not participated in the straw polls and beauty contests as much as some of the other guys have, but we're working very hard to get support and put those delegates together. And so far, with New Hampshire and Florida and Nevada now decided, why we're leading in the delegate count, and hope that we'll be able to continue that going forward. Super Tuesday will be a big day, but of course Arizona and Michigan will have a lot of delegates coming out before Super Tuesday, and I'm very hopeful to be successful in both of those contests. So hope Minnesota also gives me a nod. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
If it goes all the way to the nomination battle, is that a good thing ultimately for the fact that it would be settled there, and you'd have, I would assume, a united Republican Party around a nominee, despite some bumps and bruises in the spring? Is that a good thing, or would that be a bad thing and make it more difficult for the ultimate nominee to beat Barack Obama?
Well, I'm really not a political pundit in terms of assessing what the impact would be of going all the way to the convention. I just don't think that's terribly likely. I think most likely the party regulars will surround one of the people who they think has the best chance of beating Barack Obama, and then start raising money for the general election. Of course, he's doing that already. He and the Democratic Party have raised some $200 million. And, of course, each of the four of us that are still in the race are raising money for our primaries. So at some point we'll have to pick our person and start raising money so we can compete with Barack Obama. Otherwise, we'll be massively outspent.
Let's talk a little bit about energy. I am a proponent of domestic energy big time, largely as a result of the fact that I've lived most of my adult life now in North Dakota, native Minnesotan, but lived most of my adult life in North Dakota, and I've seen the game changer that domestic energy has brought here. Not just oil, which everybody's focused on now, but coal before that, and there's a large supply of wind here, a lot of turbines going. There's just a domestic energy boom that is happening, and certainly it is being fueled now internationally by what's happening in the Bakken, in the oil play. Talk a little bit about how a President Mitt Romney would take that to the next level and break off some of those shackles that we're seeing from the Obama administration on taxation, on regulation, and even using their Justice Department to target oil companies.
Well, I really think that the president does not want to see carbon-based energy growing in our country. I think his view is shaped in part by the extreme environmentalists in his party and some of the liberals he attends evening functions with, and they don't like coal, they don't like oil. For some reason, they don't like gas either. Of course, they don't like nuclear. They do like wind and solar. Nothing wrong with wind and solar and ethanol and other renewable sources, but the overwhelming majority of our energy needs will be supplied by coal, gas, and oil, and we ought to be developing those resources as aggressively as we possibly can. As you know, new technology and getting gas out of the ground has led to massive new sources of gas in this country. We ought to be getting those developed and pipeline those to not only to power generation plants, but in particular to transportation, long-haul transportation routes. America can become energy secure, particularly if we tap into the Keystone Pipeline and bring it into the U.S. we really ought to be bringing energy to the U.S. If we do, we'll provide feedstocks for manufacturing, which will make them more competitive, put people to work. We'll also free ourselves from having to send hundreds of billions of dollars out of the country every year. So this is kind of a no-brainer, but despite it being a no-brainer, I think President Obama is failing the test.
Let's talk a little bit about the sugar program. A lot of growers here in the Red River Valley, and certainly that's always a political force in any election in this region, Minnesota and North Dakota, growers of sugar. That came up in one of the Florida debates. I forget which debate, but it came up, and you were specifically asked about the sugar program, and had a chance to, I think, add on to an answer that Newt Gingrich had given a little more extensively about being against it. Should the sugar program change? Should ultimately that program that now exists that growers say, hey, is the only way you can keep jobs like we have right now in the Red River Valley go away?
Well, I'm not someone who favors permanent subsidies, whether it's in the energy sector or whether it's in the agriculture sector. At the same time, there's some things we have to do. One is to make sure that with the ups and downs of industry, that we don't lose our capacity to provide for ourselves. So we don't want to become dependent on foreign nations for our agriculture products, like we're currently dependent on foreign nations for our energy products. So of course there's a need for a safety net, a security program to protect ourselves from the kind of whipsaw that sometimes occurs in agriculture, and to keep our ranchers and farmers from going out of business in tough times. But that said, a program of extensive tariffs and subsidies, in my view, is not the right way for our country to go. And I will look at the agriculture programs to make sure that we protect ourselves from foreign competition, which is unfair, and many times that occurs. And so we have to make sure that we're not putting our farmers at a competitive disadvantage. At the same time, that we wean ourselves from permanent subsidies, which can distort our market and make it harder for us to create jobs.
Last thing I want to ask you about, and there's a strong pro-life community in Minnesota, and a lot of talk about the power of the social conservative vote here. Same in North Dakota, by the way, which will come a little bit later. But we've watched with great interest the last couple of days the Planned Parenthood supporters just bully the Susan G. Komen for the Cure Foundation folks, and ultimately they have now given a slightly different decision than they did before, saying they're going to allow Planned Parenthood to apply for future grants. Should Susan G. Komen's Plan for the Cure, in your view, continue to fund in any way Planned Parenthood?
I don't think so. I also feel that the government should cut off funding to Planned Parenthood. Look, the idea that we're subsidizing an institution which is providing abortion, in my view, is wrong. Planned Parenthood ought to stand on its own feet and should not get government subsidy. I am a pro-life individual. I was a pro-life governor, served as a pro-life governor. I'm a pro-life candidate. I simply do not want to participate in anything that takes the life of an unborn child.
We'll have to leave it there, Governor. I appreciate your time so much and checking in with us, and thanks so much. Governor Mitt Romney on the campaign trail on the Scott Hennen Show.